What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Gamescript. Tonight we have the New Orleans Saints at the Los Angeles Rams. The Los Angeles Rams have been one of the hottest teams in the NFL over the past month, and tonight they're fighting for their playoff lives. But I have a captain option that I think will be very discounted on the Saints side, and I'll get into it after this. There is a ton of value in current underdog playoff best ball ADP. Elite offenses like the Bills are easy to stack. Take advantage of uncertainty and start drafting now. Use the promo code SEEK for up to a $100 match on your first deposit. And subscribe to Heat Seeker Sports on YouTube for underdog strategy and drafting shows. Hey, what's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Gamescript. As I said, we got the Los Angeles Rams versus the New Orleans Saints, looking at a 46.5-point total with the Rams as 3.5-point favorites. And this game will be played in Los Angeles. And before we get into the analysis, why don't you hit the like button on the video? Looking for 15 likes to get a short video out a little bit before game time when we get closer to lock, where I can give you some final thoughts on core plays that I like for tonight. And also make sure to hit subscribe on the YouTube channel, because you're going to want to set your alerts for when those videos come out later in the day, so you don't miss them when they come out closer to lock. And also make sure to sign up for Underdog, because Underdog is doing a promo code with Heat Seeker Sports where if you use the promo code SEEK, that's SEEK, they will match you up to $100 on your first deposit. So if you're a new account owner of Underdog and you're making your first deposit, they will match you up to $100 if you use the promo code SEEK. And we are in playoff best ball mode. And this is the best kind of best ball, more fun, and it lasts for the entire playoffs. And you get weekly payouts instead of having to have your money tied up for an entire season. So it's a lot of benefits to playing playoff best ball, and it's a fun game to play where you're trying to guess the teams that are going to make it through the playoffs to the Super Bowl. And if you're good at guessing that kind of stuff, you can do well in playoff best ball. And even if you're not, I'm going to be putting out a ton of content with my thoughts. I've had some success on that game over the past couple years since it was introduced. And it's probably my favorite game to play outside of Showdown. But playoff best ball has started, and there is a ton of value. And I'll get into that in my shows. And you can already see a couple that I've posted already. So make sure to check those out, and make sure to make that initial deposit on Underdog, where you can get up to $100 match using the promo code SEEK. So now let's get into this game. We are in a situation where the Los Angeles Rams need this win tonight. They have 3 games left. One of them is against the Saints. They have an easy game against the Giants, and they have a difficult game in Week 18 versus the 49ers. So the Rams really need to win this game in order to improve their playoff chances. I think their odds go up to 75% chance of making it into the playoffs if they win tonight. So it's a very important game for the Rams. I think they're currently at 50% chance of making it in. And if they lose tonight, then it becomes like a 14% chance of making it into the playoffs. So very important game for the Rams tonight. And they are heating up at the right time. And they are facing off against New Orleans, who has been, like their typical New Orleans team, where, they might end up with a 50, like a 500 record or whatever. And, maybe vying for the playoffs, but they need to win their division. They're in the NFC South, which is a really bad division. So anything's possible with the Saints potentially making it into the playoffs. But I think they probably need to win their division to do that. So it's an easier path for the Rams to make the playoffs. So this game is going to be super important to them tonight. So we'll get into this game next. We have Kyren Williams, who has been on fire lately. You can see it in his game log, almost 30 DraftKings points last week, 17 the week before that, 20 the week before that, then 41, 24. So just been on fire. Like, the Rams have done a great job of drafting guys, because they draft a lot of these guys who end up becoming studs like Puka Nacua and Kyren Williams and whatnot. They trade away their first round picks for veterans, and then they draft these guys in like the 5th and 6th rounds, and it's just crazy how good they are at picking out those players. But it does help that they have a good coach. I think the Los Angeles Rams have a massive coaching advantage tonight in this game. Rams are more of a cerebral type of team. Very smart players, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and young guys who are playing well in Kyren Williams and Puka Nacua. So Rams are heating up at the right time. I think that they can get decent in the playoffs too. If they make it into the playoffs, I think they have a chance of upsetting a team in the first round. I think they might play the Eagles in the first round based on my projections, and it would give them a good undervalue on playoff best ball spot where they can advance maybe to the conference championship against the 49ers. But we'll get into that on the underdog shows. Cooper Kupp is the next man up. He is catching on at the right time. Last 2 weeks, he's had 28 points. He had 16 the week before that. So we're starting to see that old Cooper Kupp that we're used to, the one that everybody drafted in the first round this year. And he's looking good at the right time for helping the team in real life football, making it into the playoffs. And I like Cooper Kupp tonight. He's got a difficult matchup, though. The Saints are not allowing a ton of points to the wideout position. They have allowed only 15.8 points a game, DraftKings points a game, to the slot receivers, and they've only allowed 7 points a game to the wideout position. So Saints are a tough defense for the Rams to overcome. I think the Rams have the weapons and the coaching to do it, but it's going to be a difficult game for the Rams tonight, and I do think that they're going to win. I think it's going to be a very close game, potentially low-scoring game, unless it ends up being one of those games where the Rams just kind of get it together and they end up scoring a bunch of points on these Saints. So we got Alvin Kamara next. Kamara, he's been double-digit points pretty consistently, over 15 points for about 5 weeks in a row. And before that, he had 27 points, 29 points, 17 points, 18 points. So he's been on fire, long story short. So Kamara is a guy that we're always going to be interested in. And Derek Carr loves to target him. 5 targets, 8 targets, 5 targets, 7 targets. That's his last 5 games. So gives you an idea of how much Alvin Kamara is being used in this passing game, and sets him up to have a decent amount of receptions tonight and keep him in your player pool. Obviously, Alvin Kamara, he should be popular in the captain too. And I don't think that he necessarily has the best matchup. He has a matchup against the Rams, who are only giving up 18 DraftKings points a game to the running back, which is not good. So temper your expectations with Kamara, but he is a huge part of this offense, so you don't want to necessarily fade him. So Matthew Stafford is next. Stafford has been playing really well lately. If you look at his touchdowns and interceptions, he's got 2, 5, 8. He's got 12 touchdowns and 1 interception since week 12. And in those weeks, he scored 24 DraftKings points, 23, 24, and 19. So he's looking like Matthew Stafford looked during the Super Bowl run a couple years ago. And as I said, like, they're heating up at the right time. And tonight they will be playing for their playoff lives. He runs into a buzzsaw, though, with this Saints defense. They are very difficult defense for quarterbacks. They're giving up 15.5 DraftKings points a game to quarterback. But, the wideouts are and slot receivers are not having very good games against the Saints this season, at least since week 6. That is where I do my projections from. So Puka Nacua, I mentioned earlier, he's been a rookie on fire. He's been kind of quiet like last couple weeks, but he had that 127-point game against Cleveland. So perfectly capable of putting up points in difficult matchups. And the Rams, they just have between Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, they've got a really good combo there. And on top of that, Demarcus Robinson has been showing up recently. Demarcus Robinson is way down in the salary range. Put him on flex. He's 5,400, so he's gotten up there recently, but he's had 3 weeks in a row with double-digit DraftKings points, and he's got 3 targets, 10 targets, 5 targets in that stretch. He scored a touchdown all 3 weeks, so maybe a little bit of variance coming his way at that high price of 5,400. So it's just something to keep in mind against this difficult matchup. Derek Carr has probably one of the better matchups on this slate. DraftKings points allowed by the Rams are 20, and they are allowing 23 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. So that makes the passing game of New Orleans probably have the best matchup, and they're going to be under-owned. We're going to be getting a discount on their ownership tonight. So that is going to make the passing game for the Saints very interesting, especially in a game script where the Saints should be playing from behind, and they have a weak spot in that Rams defense in the passing game. So very good for Derek Carr. And if we go down a little bit further, we see Chris Olave. Chris Olave might be one of my favorite captain targets on the night. He is projected under 10%. He's been getting 8-9 targets for several weeks before he got hurt. And in that stretch before he got hurt, he put up 20 DraftKings points, 21 DraftKings points, 21 DraftKings points, 17 DraftKings points. So perfectly capable of putting up a captain score. And his price isn't bad either. He's at 8,600 in the flex. So good price on Olave and good opportunity for him to be a captain. Shaheed is way overpriced. He's at 7K. They might have been pricing him that way, expecting Olave to be out, but he would be a pay up to be contrarian type of play tonight, because you look at what he's done recently: 4 targets, 5 targets, 9 targets, but he's only gotten 7 points, 3 points, and 6 points there. But he is perfectly capable of putting up points. He has the upside, but given the risk reward here and his price, he might be a guy that I have low exposure to tonight, depending on what kind of news I see leading up into lock on what Olave's status is going to be, because Shaheed might play better if the attention is on Olave tonight and give him like some opportunities. Taysom Hill, he was hurt last week, only scored 1.5 DraftKings points. Week before that, though, he scored 15, and we went on a little stretch there where you had 20, 22, and 16 DraftKings points. So Taysom Hill at 6,600, this is the sweet spot of his price range where you can use Taysom, and given his usage over the past several games where he was healthy, he's been worth it. So depending on his ownership, he's the type of guy where if he's low owned, you probably want to have higher exposure to, but if he's higher owned, you want to have lower exposure to. And he's in this matchup against the Rams. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get scoring opportunities in this matchup. If we go down to Higbee's probably got the best matchup as far as the Rams tonight. He doesn't get a whole lot of usage, but he's gotten like 5 targets, 4 targets, and 5 targets the last 3 weeks. Put up 20 DraftKings points against Arizona, who also has a weak tight end defense. And tonight, the Saints are giving up 17 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position, which is by far their weakest spot in their defense. So Higbee is in play tonight. I know he's like probably a difficult guy to pull the trigger on, but at 5,800, he is in play tonight. So keep him in your player pool. Demarcus Robinson I covered. Michael Thomas is still on IR, and yeah, he's not going to be able to start tonight. Haversick, this is the Rams kicker. He has not been very good. He's been missing a bunch of kicks, but he did put up 2 double-digit points weeks recently. So maybe a guy to keep in your player pool. But if you're leaning towards a kicker, you might want to go with Group. Group, he has he's been okay. Like he's had a few weeks with double-digit points. He had a 19 DraftKings point week against Atlanta, and the Saints should have no problem moving the ball in the passing game, and that would set up Group for potential opportunities, especially in a game where the Rams defense is going to be playing tight. I would expect Group to get a decent amount of opportunities when they get into that red zone. Jamal Williams has been getting a decent amount of the workload lately. Eight attempts last week, 11 the week before that, 5 the week before that, but he's not putting up any points with it. So he's enough to be a hindrance on Kamara, but not enough to be a standalone guy. But given that opportunity, 4,200, like if you get in a range where you want to rotate guys in, then might be a good idea to rotate Williams in at least one lineup if you have a good core to put together. Juwan Johnson hasn't really done anything. It's been a disappointment this year. Tight ends are getting 12.6 DraftKings points a game from the Rams, and that's about middling. So I wouldn't write off Juwan Johnson, but the offense of the Saints is pretty tight. It's pretty condensed to, like a few main guys with Carr, Olave, Kamara, and, Rashid Shaheed finds his way in there every once in a while. So Johnson has not gotten a lot of opportunities, and this might be it's probably a Derek Carr thing. Like I think Derek Carr just likes to throw to the guys he's comfortable with, and it seems to be Kamara and Olave, and then deep shots to Rashid Shaheed every once in a while. We got the Rams defense. Not really interested in the Rams defense necessarily, and they've only had 1 week with double-digit points. But I think that the stakes of this game, I think that the Saints are going to be careful with the ball tonight. I would not expect the defense tonight to have a decent game. Saints have a really good defense, as I was mentioning. 14 DraftKings points last week, 21 the week before that. They've had a few more big weeks in there too. But, given the offense that they're up against and the fact that they're pretty outmatched as far as coaching goes, I think that the Rams are going to find their way around this defense tonight. And, I wouldn't be surprised to see a pick six or something like that. Let's see how many interceptions that Stafford has had recently. I went over that at the top of the show. He's only had 1 in the last 4 games as far as maybe fumbles. No fumbles lost on the entire season. So he's been pretty good recently, but anything can happen in these games. And if he threw a pick six, maybe use those Saints defense in the lineups where you have like Saints upset builds. A.T. Perry, he's been like the third guy in the wide receiver room lately. He's been like the third wide receiver, and he's been getting not very many targets. 2 targets last week, 1 target the week before that, 3, 2, 4. And I think last week Olave was out. Let me double check that. He was out, or at least he got hurt in the last game. Last game he played was week 14. Yeah, so he was out last week. So even with that circumstance, Perry did not get a whole lot of targets last week. So that's not very good. That's not what we like to see. And they lost 24-6 to the Giants. So yeah, actually, no, I'm sorry. They won 24-6 against the Giants. So maybe just they stuck with the running game and just didn't give the receivers very much opportunity. But yeah, A.T. Perry, only 2 targets in the week where Olave was out. So that's not very good. Lynn Bowden. Now, this guy is a guy that I'm interested in. Look at the last couple weeks, 5 targets and 4 targets against New York and Carolina. Put up 6 DraftKings points in each of those weeks. Bowden is a guy that I liked in best ball a couple years back. I think when he was with Miami, he had 1 year. I can't remember the team that he was with, but he showed some flashes that year, and then he got hurt. His knee was hurt, and he missed an entire season. And this year, I think he's kind of been, floating around. He ended up on the Saints, and he's been getting opportunity the last couple weeks with 5 targets and 4 targets. He's a utility guy. He's a versatile guy. He's the type of guy that the Saints like. He's kind of like a Taysom Hill. He used to be a quarterback in college, and now he's kind of a slot gimmick gadget guy. And he's only 3K tonight, so I'm going to be keeping Lynn Bowden in my player pool tonight. And given the pass game situation against the Rams, I would not be surprised if we see Bowden have an impact on the game tonight. So keep him in your player pool at 3K. Tutu Atwell has not been doing very good recently. He's only had a couple games with over double-digit points since week 4. And he got off to a hot start like in the beginning of the season, but then he just kind of fell off a cliff. Not really sure why. Maybe because Kupp came back and took back that slot role or something. But yeah, he has not been making much of an impact at all. And I'm not a huge fan of Atwell tonight, but he is cheap at 2,800. Royce Freeman, not really interested there. He's the backup running back. Not a whole lot of attempts the last couple weeks, but he's a journeyman type of guy. He's ended up on the Rams, and I like Kyren Williams a lot more. Kirkwood is another one of these floaters, but like on the Saints side, scored a touchdown last week, but with Kirkwood, he's not going to be getting enough opportunity to end up in an optimal, I don't think. So I'll pass on him. And then we go down to guys like Davis Allen had a big week last week or 2 weeks ago. He had 15 DraftKings points, but we got Higbee back tonight. Allen is a tight end, though, which is the Saints' weak spot. So maybe sprinkle him in. Like if you're doing 150, keep him in your player pool. Foster Moreau and Jimmy Graham have not really done much like this season, but Graham has caught touchdowns the last 3 weeks, but he's only had 2 and 1 target. And I don't think that less than 10 DraftKings points is going to be enough to get you in an optimal necessarily. But if you're looking for that cheap salary, he's at 1,600. So Graham would be my favorite guy under 2K here, it looks like. Yeah, I don't really see anything else that stands out. But yeah, those cheap guys, Graham, if you're looking under 2K, Bowden, if you're looking in that 3K range, and maybe Allen if you can't afford Bowden. So that gives you some options there. Let's start putting together a lineup. I think Kyren Williams is going to be the most popular captain tonight. So we'll put him in there. And I'll just build you from the optimizer what they're projecting. So Foster Moreau they have in there for some reason, 2K. That'll be where we get a little bit different from our projection. They also have Tutu Atwell. Already not really liking this. Then they got Olave, Nacua, and Stafford. Olave. Let's put Stafford in. And that leaves us with 9,800. So, yeah, Nacua, Shaheed, Carr, if you want to get one of those guys. I would get rid of Atwell, and I would get rid of Moreau. If I was going this direction with Williams in the captain, I think I like Kupp better than I like Nacua. I don't think Nacua has a very good matchup. So if that left us in that spot where we're looking for those cheap guys, Jimmy Graham might be one of them just based on like he's the one who's getting the most opportunity down here. So let's put in Graham, and that leaves us with 2K. Yeah, I mean, like Moreau. That's why they're putting those guys in. So this is why I don't like putting these expensive guys in the captain. But this gives you those guys in play at least. to be able to put Kupp and Williams and Stafford in your lineup. There are and Olave, so it gives you 2 punt positions basically. One of which is Graham, who's been putting up points lately, and Moreau. He got 5 targets last week, which is good. I think Taysom was out last week though, or at least hurt. So, he's an option, but not one that I necessarily like. If I was doing this, I'd get rid of Williams and the captain. Maybe put in Olave instead, because I do like Olave tonight. As long as we hear that he's not going to be limited in his return from injury. So we got Kupp to Stafford to Kupp. We want to get Kyren in there. He's going to be the highest raw points guy on the slate. That at least puts us in a situation where we have 2,400. So if we put, let's say we put Jimmy Graham in, that leaves us with 3,300, and that puts us in that Bowden range. So that's a spot where I'd like to use Bowden. It gives us a 3-3 build. If we do that, if we wanted to swap out Kupp, which I don't like doing because I think Kupp has a much better matchup tonight than Nacua, that leaves us with 4,700, and that leaves us with the group. If we wanted to take out Jimmy Graham, let's put Bowden in there. That leaves us with 3,300. So you get Perry in there, Kirkwood, Freeman. Don't really like any of those guys. I think I'd prefer Jimmy Graham over all those guys, honestly. Let's say we want to swap out Stafford. Let's put Carr in there instead. That leaves us with 4,300. So that leaves us in that the defense range. So, if you wanted to put the Saints defense in this build, this is where I wouldn't mind putting them in the build because, they're being successful enough to shut down Stafford. If we wanted to put in the Saints D, would that get us to Cooper Kupp? No, that gets us to Stafford, Nacua, and Shaheed. So you could take your pick of those guys if you take a build like this. If you wanted to put in Graham, though, instead of Bowden, then you could get Kupp in this build. So that would get you to Kupp. If you wanted to get the Kupp and you wanted to try to get Stafford in there, you're 100 short. So maybe Saints D out, Bowden in, and that gets you to Stafford. So, that build I don't hate. You have Stafford to Kupp, and you got Williams in there, and a pretty condensed offense. And then on the other side, you got 2 scrubs and Bowden and Graham who have upside, and then Olave and the captain. So, not the best build. I probably like the one with Derek Carr over Stafford in there. Let's see. If we wanted to do maybe Cooper Kupp and the captain, I think it makes a lot of sense to have Kyren in there. And then we put Stafford in there too. And then we got Olave. Yeah, very tight on salary. It's going to be scrub diving tonight probably, unless we can find a guy that is cheap. Higbee had that good matchup. So let's take out Stafford. Let's put in You know what? Let me mess around here. Let's put in Higbee and the captain. He's got the best matchup on the Rams. Maybe he scores a couple touchdowns. Let's get Williams in there. And then Kupp and Stafford and Olave. Leaves us with 500. If we want to do that, we could rotate in guys like Skowronek. We've seen him pop off before. 3 targets a couple weeks ago, but other than that, he's been putting up goose eggs lately. He might have been inactive for all I know. Other than that, I don't really see any sneaky guys. James Robinson is on the Saints now. He'd probably be the most interesting of these $200 guys, but he might even be inactive. If we wanted to put in, let's say we take Stafford out and we put in Derek Carr, that puts us up to 1,500. If we wanted to take out Carr, put Stafford back in there, swap out Kupp for Nacua, leaves us with 1,900. So we got Jimmy Graham option. So that kind of gives you a idea of ways to go with this. If you want to go cheap with the captain with Higbee, that's an option. In a low scoring game, maybe we do this. Maybe we put in Higbee, not in the captain, but in the flex. And then we kind of rotate in captains here. We'd have options like Bowden. I don't like him as a captain option. I think he could, maybe put up a decent amount of points, but not enough to get a captain spot. If we wanted to go a little bit cheaper than Higbee, all right. So let's say Davis. Maybe Davis gets a touchdown tonight. Let's get him in. If I can find him. Oh, Allen. Allen was his name. Davis Allen. Let's get Allen in there. This is 8,400 in the captain spot. Let's get rid of Nacua. Let's put Kupp back in. That leaves us 7K in the captain spot. So if you wanted to do a kicker captain, I think that would make sense with this build. In a low-scoring projected game, I guess it's not that low-scoring if it's 46.5 point total, but I think it could be low-scoring given the stakes of this game and the defense that New Orleans has. So that would make sense to have a guy like Group in the captain. If you wanted to build it, flex up and put up all your flex guys in there and then see what's left over for a captain. If you wanted to put Carr in there instead, then that would leave you with, same basically, except you have an extra kicking option. So I kind of like the idea of Higbee in the captain. I think there's a way to play around with that a little bit. Not sure what it is exactly. You probably want Stafford in the flex position if you're going to have Higbee as the captain. If we wanted to take Olave out, let's say he's hurt, but his decoy and Shaheed is benefiting from that. Leave us with 2K. Let's say we don't want Shaheed. Let's say we want Taysom Hill. That leaves us with 2,500. And we haven't even put in Kamara yet. So let's take out Stafford. Let's try one with Kamara. That leaves us at 1,700. That's Jimmy Graham territory. So at least he's a decent punt with this setup. You got Taysom Hill and Kamara. Not many people are going to want to play those guys together because they both do rushing touchdowns. But Kamara's and Taysom have been used in the passing game a lot this season. Look at Taysom's targets. 4 targets, 5 targets against Chicago and Minnesota. Chicago's a tough, underrated defense, and so is Minnesota. 5 against Jacksonville, which was an easy matchup. 8 against Houston, which was an easy matchup. So, I wouldn't put it past Taysom and Kamara to show up in a lineup together this week. But I do like Kupp and Williams are probably my favorite plays on the slate tonight, and Olave. So it's hard for me to lean Kamara over Olave, but I think given the injury status of Olave, that makes a lot of sense to take Kamara over him. But I think for a discounted captain, Olave makes a ton of sense tonight with the lack of ownership that he's going to have. Let's see. If we wanted to do Williams, Kupp, Hill, do Hill in this build, then we got, let's use a cheap guy. Let's put in Higbee. That leaves us with 2,500. If we wanted to swap out Higbee and go with Allen, leaves us with 6,100. So not really benefit there. You need to get to 7K to get the next guy up as far as the studs go. But yeah, I mean, this is just direction that you guys can play around with. Let's put in Nacua. That leaves us with 7,500. That gives us Shaheed at least, but it gives us 2 pass catchers and Hill without Derek Carr. So I don't know if that makes a ton of sense. If we wanted to fade Williams in a difficult matchup, the Saints are giving up 22 DraftKings points a game to the running back, so it's not that difficult of a matchup. Let's try to go a different direction here. I like the Saints passing game. Let's try putting Carr in the captain, which I hate, but, just for a test here. And then we want Olave, and let's put in Taysom in there. I know he's doesn't correlate with Carr at all because he's going to be taking away Carr's scoring opportunities, but it could also happen that Carr passes the ball to Taysom Hill. As far as receiving touchdowns, Taysom has 1 on the year. That was back against Chicago. So maybe not the best idea, but that was the week that Taysom put up 20 points against Chicago. How much did Derek Carr put up against Chicago? 16. Yeah. You know what? Let's put Taysom in that captain. Let's put Taysom in the captain. We got Olave. Let's add in Williams. Taysom in the captain helps us justify not having Kamara in there. We put Kupp in there. We can't get Stafford in there. But we still have 4,600 left over per guy. So if we wanted to go somewhere like group to also help us prevent Kamara from being in there, at that point, you could put in the Rams D, you could put in the Saints D, you could put in Juwan Johnson, and you could put in Jamal Williams. So you have some options there, and keep playing around with it though. A lot of these make sense. I think Taysom would make sense in the captain. It seems like one of those weird games. Olave makes sense in the captain. I think the Rams are too expensive to put in the captain, and I don't like the options necessarily, but you do have Graham and Bowden as salary relief tonight. Keep an eye on Skowronek, because if he's playing tonight, if he's active, then at least that gives you a $400 option. That could be interesting. Well, I mean, he's not going to be interesting. I'll just put it that way. But at least it gives you a $400 guy that has gotten targets. Not very many, but he's gotten targets. So anyways, make sure to hit that like button. Get me to 15. I'll put out a shorter video closer to lock with my more condensed thoughts. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can get those alerts. Sign up for those alerts. And also make sure to sign up for Underdog, because on new accounts with Underdog, on your first deposit, if you use the promo code SEEK, I got it right there on the screen, bottom corner of my screen, SEEK, $100 deposit match, up to $100 when you make your first deposit on Underdog. So helps me out too with my sponsorships. So I appreciate you guys making your deposits and opening your accounts on Underdog. And appreciate you guys watching. And I'll have a bunch of content out for the Saturday content and Christmas coming up and all that stuff. So make sure to subscribe to the page so you get and sign up for the alerts so you get the alerts when those are happening. And get me to 300 because I'm at 240 right now. I need 60 more to get to 300. So hit that subscribe. Thanks, guys.